Problems. If you're trying to manufacture anything, you're going to have problems, and lots of them. I can't remember who it was who said it, but someone who was smart once said, if you want to try and make anything, well, that's relatively straightforward. If you want to then go and try and mass produce that thing, that is difficult. What that means is that, like, let's say I wanted to make a boomerang. Well, I've got no constraints, have I? I can just say, okay, well, I'm going to make a boomerang as a project. So I go and buy some wood, I'll try it, things will go wrong. It's not a big problem. I'll just try it again, and it might take me 3 weeks to make my boomerang, and then it might not fly very well, but that's okay. I'll just go and buy some more wood, right? And I'll try another boomerang, and maybe in 6 months later time, I'll have made a boomerang, and I would have learned some things along the way. But if that was my manufacturing process, I'll be out of business on my first boomerang, okay? Because it's taken me forever to make it, and it's cost me a fortune to get it right, and then I can only sell it for a certain amount of money. So quite obviously, that is not going to work out. So what that quote means really is that you can make one thing, and you haven't got any constraints on how much it costs you or how much time it takes. When you're mass producing, it's because you're trying to sell something, and you're trying to sell it. You're trying to develop a system whereby you actually end up with some profit, some margin, and that's where the problems begin. Because to be able to do that, your processors need to have consistency and accuracy, and it needs to come in at a certain price so you can hit your price point when you go to market and try and sell the thing for more than it costs you to make. And like I said before, I've been screen printing for 30 years. Screen printing is a really finicky process. I think that it's defined as having 96 different categorizable variables in any given print job, even if it's a single color print job. What that means is that as a process, as a print process, there are 96 things that can go wrong, which are things like the thickness of your ink, the integrity of your stencil, the tightness of your screen mesh, the humidity of the day, your evaporation rate, your ability for the ink to adhere to the substrate that you're printing. Sorry, substrate's a really posh word for what you're printing on. The ability of the ink to adhere to it, sharpness of detail, getting the color right. There's 96 of those things that can get in your way and ruin your day. And so what doing any manufacturing process is really all about is identifying what your variables are and then putting measures in place to control them. So again, it was a big advantage for us really when we came to make a boomerang, because we've already spent 30 years banging our heads against the wall trying to get screen printing to behave for us. So we went into this going, this ain't going to be easy. Even though it's a relatively straightforward object, we were like, yeah, we're going to encounter problems. We weren't disappointed by the amount of hurdles we had to overcome. We totally expected them. And that is the secret, really, about the word problems. The word problem automatically has a negative connotation, doesn't it? It's a problem. Oh, that's a bad thing. Problems are great. In my business, we've learned to embrace our problems because you're always going to get them. If you think that you're going to think of a way of doing something and it's going to work out first time, well, then the odds of that happening, what are the chances? It's just not going to work out that way. You're going to encounter problems, and your initial ideas are going to have been wrong, and you're going to get proved wrong time and time again. But by critically examining what went wrong, we then learn more and more about how to get it right, and more importantly, how to get it right consistently, day to day, job to job, boomerang to boomerang. And if you can get a manufacturing process to work 90% of the time reliably and produce a product that is reliable and does the same thing and is repeatable, consistent, then you're on the right path to success and being able to actually work out whether or not you're going to make money or not. I've met so many screen printers over the years, and We all have the same problems. And you hear time and time again, it's like, we're working so hard, I just cannot work out why we're not making any money. And you start to sort of dig into how they're doing things. And it's like, well, yeah, because half your day is spent putting out fires and dealing with problems that you did not anticipate. So that whole day should have been filled with profitable printing, but you spent half the time kind of getting it wrong and wondering why. And that's why the money trickled out of your business. So, specifically, what did we come across when we were trying to make boomerangs? One of the things that makes my boomerangs fairly unique is, I'm not the first person to do this, but I think I'm the only person doing it commercially at the moment, is that my boomerangs are made using this strip laminating process. This is where we take pieces of, we cut timber into thin veneers and steam bend it and then laminate it all together in a mold. And form our boomerang and then shape it by hand. And that's the process. And I wanted to do it that way because A, it makes a really, it's a nice strong way of building with wood. But B, it's really pretty. And one of the things that I wanted my boomerangs to be was something that was aesthetically nice. Even if you weren't wildly into boomerangs for whatever reason, you'd just be like, that's a nice thing. I can see that on my wall. And so the strip laminating process, really showcases beautiful woods and they look really pretty, and a lot of people do say when they see them, they looked at boomerang close up before, they've gone, these are just really, really nice things. And that's what we're trying to do. But within that, there's a process, isn't there? We've had to do that laminating and quite apart from getting the profile right, that was a whole other animal. Learning, the sort of aerodynamics of a boomerang and what makes one fly well versus another one. That's a tricky thing, and that was a lot, and continues to be a lot of trial and error. I spend a lot of the time out in the field, out the back here, testing boomerangs. We get used to what sort of flight pattern we're looking for. You throw a boomerang and it's not doing quite what you want, but over time you start to learn to diagnose that accurately. Okay, it didn't fly the characteristic way I'd like it to, and I think that is because there was too much weight here, or there was not enough camber here, or whatever it was. And over time, there's no real shortcut for that. You can, I've read books on the topic and all the rest of it, but it's like saying to someone, "Well, go and learn to play the guitar by reading a book." You might know how to play a guitar, but you won't be able to do it. You've got to get out there and do it, and nothing works like out in the field experience. So let me just grab one of our boomerangs. So problems we encountered, not all of them by any means. There's a lot of development and a lot of time spent on this. But just to give you an idea, the things that you might come up against when you have this idea to make your dog umbrella or whatever, it doesn't work out, and you've got to work out why not, and also how to get it to work out within the context of something that you can sell at the right price point for a profit. So these rely heavily on gluing and bonding. So things we found in the early days, we were making molds with G-clamps and things. Thank you, Dan. Yeah. I mean, this was one of our early ones. Anyone who's ever skateboarded will know what a delamination is. It's where the laminates of your skateboard or your boomerang fail, and they fail for a number of reasons. It's because you did not get that glue joint right. You didn't get the pressure right. Perhaps the glue wasn't the right glue, or the faces of your cut on all sorts of different reasons why you can get delamination. So when we started, it was a lot of experimenting with different types of glue. Which glue works best? Well, you can try half a dozen of these things. This is before you've even made one boomerang. But you keep going back in. Why didn't it work? Why did it fail? Could it be this? Could it be that? Lots and lots and lots of different variables to begin with. But gradually, by doing it scientifically, and generally the rule is you change one parameter at a time when you've got a hypothesis on why something didn't work out right. You don't go, well, it could have been the glue and it could have been the pressure, so we'll make another boomerang and we'll use different glue and we'll use more pressure. Well, that might work, but what you haven't been able to glean from that is whether it was the pressure or the glue that was at fault, or both. Okay, you've got to change one parameter at a time. And so even with something simple, relatively simple like a boomerang, once you dig into it, you know, the devil's in the detail. And you realise that actually there's an awful lot going on. Applying the transfers, do we direct screen print them? The first boomerangs that we made, which again, delaminated, all sorts of problems going on here, and this one didn't fly very well. You know, we screen printed them direct. This was causing problems for lots of different reasons. So we went on to screen printed transfers. So then getting the transfers to adhere to the wood effectively, you know, that was another bunch of problems we encountered. And then there was the Learnerang. When we got onto the Learnerang, which is the sort of entry-level boomerang, which is CAD cut out of sheets of preformed plywood, so much cheaper to make than the strip lambs, and as a result, we were able to sell them for a much more entry-level friendly price point. But and so when we got to doing deciding we wanted to make a less expensive boomerang, you know, to go into our range, and we came up with the concept of the Learnerang. We're like, oh, okay, well, this should be a lot easier, right? Because, you know, we're getting the basic shape CAD cut and then doing the profiling by hand, but we haven't got to do the laminating and so on and so forth. The Learnerang took an amount of development that I could not have predicted. I thought it would be more straightforward than it was, and it caught me out. And it took a lot of time to get the weight right, to get the shape just right, and to get the profiling right. And those were my problems. The problems with this, it seemed to be much harder to get to a point where we were happy with how these worked. And I wouldn't have given it credit for that in the first place. And, you know, given my experience, I should have done. I should have gone in going, yeah, this is going to have all sorts of problems. It's not going to be plain sailing. And that's it, really. That's the second point about doing, you know, trying to start something for yourself, or trying to do something new and bring it to market. And you know, fantastic. Expect problems, and don't just expect them. Embrace them wholeheartedly, because it's your problems that will teach you, you know, how to get better at whatever it is you're doing. What's the expression? Calm seas do not make good sailors, and never a truer word spoken. So that is all about problems in manufacture. I hope, you know, that kind of flicks something somewhere and makes sense. Don't be disheartened by your problems, because they're there to help you. Okay, there we go. These don't work.